What is up, guys? Beancrew49 here. We are back on the Desolation map. And we returned to a place that we haven't been in a long time. You know, I took a little break on this little area of town and I felt kind of bad about it. I've been working on the meatpacking plant so much these days that I felt this side of town got a little bit neglected. Speaking of neglected, I need to go work on downtown a little bit. Oh my goodness, guys, I've completely neglected downtown. I've abandoned my child. I've abandoned my boy. That's a There Will Be Blood reference for you Wes Anderson fans. Anyway, we're back in Rose, and I'm here to put some finishing touches on this bad boy. You know, I did most of the interior, got most of the interior done, but I haven't really done any backstory stuff in here. And I talked about the backstory a little bit in previous weeks. You know, working on this, the backstory is sort of like a Simon Pegg sort of thing. Okay, Nick Frost, Simon Pegg sort of thing. Yeah, I remember the fat guy's name. We're going with a Shaun of the Dead feel here. We're gonna, you know, make the inhabitants of this bar. They decided that when the monsters and the zombies came, they were going to lock themselves in, okay? They weren't going to go anywhere else. They were going down with the bar. You know what I mean? They love this place so much. So, we're not going to have too much looting and scavenging in here. It's going to be pretty much as the day it was. For those, remember the episode I brought in Whiskum to help me with this room? This is for the greater good. So there's the backstory here is this bar, the owners of this bar are a little cultish, okay? They dabble in cult stuff. Not to put too fine a point on it, not to be specific, but you know, they're doing cult stuff, and those who explore the bar may find out what kind of cult it is. But I'm not going to tell you guys. I gotta leave something up to the imagination for the explorers, okay, guys? So, alright, so I'm going to be working on some finishing details, little details here and there, just to make this place look lived in. You know, I don't like empty spaces. Empty spaces are the devil. Speaking of cults. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to be doing that. Then I'm going to go outside and work on some cars in the parking lot and rough up the parking lot a little bit. And we'll call it a day. But before we call anything days, we're going to have to do something that we've been doing for over a year now. I looked at it. We've done over 52 of these. Creative question of the weeks. Guys, this is my chance to talk about something other than Minecraft. You know, you guys ask the questions. Hopefully they're creative. I give the answers. Hopefully those are creative. And we all learn something. Even if you think I'm wrong, even if you disagree with me 100%, you still learned something. Okay? And you learned... Let's say that I say something, you completely disagree, and you think about it, and it makes you think that you're even more right, then you've learned something. You've learned more about your opinion. So even if you completely disagree with me, guys, we're all learning here. We're all growing. But it's always valuable to hear a different viewpoint. Always valuable to hear a different viewpoint, because sometimes the viewpoints that you're presented with, not the best. Not the best. Okay, so... leave a creative question of the week in the comment section below, guys. I need some questions. I need fuel for this fire. So please do that, and I would really appreciate it. All right, today's creative question of the week comes from Fight Fan. And he says, what do you think of drug use in teens, or really anybody? All right, thank you, Fight Fan, for that excellent question. We haven't really talked, we've talked a little bit about this, but not really. And I get to dive deep into this one. It's going to be good. So let me answer this question by making a statement. You watching this right now, you are a drug addict. Yes, you are. You are a drug addict. You're addicted to processed sugar. You might be addicted to caffeine. You might be addicted to Advil. You might be addicted to meat. Yes, guys, meat is an addiction. Processed food is addictive. Do you ever wonder why, you know, at least once every month you get this intense craving for a hamburger? That's because you haven't had your processed meat addiction fulfilled yet. So yes, all of you, me included, we're all addicted to drugs. And the reason why I say that is because it's all in the wording, guys. It's all in the wording. You gotta see how people in power and control use words and put labels on things to make you think a certain way. Right? You see cocaine and you say that's bad, and then you see I don't know, Zoloft, right? And you say, oh, that's good. But they're the exact same thing. It's just one's frowned on by the government and one is supported by the government. It's all just buzzwords, okay? So yes, we're all addicted to drugs. And that's the way our government, that's the way the people in charge want it. They want us to be hooked on stuff because then we're dependent. And when a group of people are dependent, then they're easier to control because you can control the flow of that thing that they're dependent on, and all of a sudden they got to do what you tell them. You know what I'm saying, guys? You know what I'm saying? So right off the bat, you got to know that we're dealing with a very sophisticated system here of labeling things. And you hear these labels and you've been taught your whole life to associate things with these labels. There's illicit drugs, illegal drugs, and you're like, oh man, those things are horrible. But then you hear all these prescription drugs and you're like, oh, they're good, they help people. But sometimes the illicit drugs that you would think are so bad help people, and the prescription drugs that you think are so beneficial hurt people. Okay, and we'll get into that in a moment. So before I go any further than this, he asked me what do I think about drug use in teens or youth. It's absolutely terrible. Drugs are bad for everybody, okay? Anything you're addicted to, anything that you need, your body grows an addiction to and needs it, is bad. Pretty much anything except water and food, basically. Those are the two things we actually need. Everything else you put into your body is just junk. And so, yeah, I think, of course, no adult should be on drugs. Of course not. But when it comes to teens, that goes doubly so. Or, I mean, youth in general. When it comes to a developing mind, up until you're like 16, 17, 18, that age, your mind is still developing. And anything you do to alter that, including taking in a lot of sugar, including taking in a lot of caffeine, that'll stunt your brain development. It'll cause your synapses to not connect fully. So I would advise that you don't have candy or sodas or coffees or teas until you're an adult. And even then, don't do it. It just is hurting you in there's so many different ways. So yeah, drugs are bad. All drugs are bad for kids, okay? All drugs are bad for kids. I mean, maybe kids Tylenol or the Flintstone vitamins. I don't know. Maybe those are good. I don't know. Okay? I'm not going to make blanket statements. Never make any blanket statement you ever hear is wrong. So yes, most drugs are bad for kids. Now, what I want to really get into is the way that our government labels things. So, back in the past, we talked about marijuana a little bit. And according to the federal government, marijuana is as bad as heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, you name it. That marijuana is in the same schedule of drugs, class 1 or whatever it is. I don't even care. I don't care about their stupid classifications. And we know that marijuana is an herbal remedy. It solves so many glaucoma, it solves eating disorders, sleep disorders, pain. I mean, it's good for so many. It's a wonder drug is what it is. It's a wonder drug. And the reason why that the government doesn't want us to be able to access it fully is because they're making so much money on these chemical drugs that are made in a laboratory. If people were able to just grow a wonder drug in their house, that would put the entire pharmaceutical company out of business. That's a multi-trillion-dollar a year industry. Trillions. The government, our medical system, has us hooked on these medications, on these painkillers, on these, all sorts of things, uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, everything. We are hooked on it, and the government is supplying it because they make a huge cut of their taxations. Okay, the government makes a lot of money. The medical industry is one of the biggest industries in the country, in the world, and they're making money, more money than you can possibly imagine, off of putting people on these drugs that they don't really need. And these drugs have horrendous side effects. Like a lot of these depression drugs, the number one side effect is desire to kill yourself, suicidal thoughts. I mean, it's unreal how overly medicated our country, and not to a lesser extent the rest of the world is. It's absolutely embarrassing. It's deplorable. It's a horrendous act of greed, basically. The medical profession, they are in it for the big bucks. The insurance companies, the government, and the medical system are just making money hand over fist. Hand over fist. So much money you can't even count that high, honestly. So that's not going to change. They don't want marijuana to get in the hands of the people. They don't want people growing it in their homes because it would cost them trillions of dollars. And so they do aggressive campaigns, they do ad campaigns, they go to your school, they send cops to your school to tell you that marijuana is the same as cocaine, which it is not. Now, I'm not endorsing cocaine or methamphetamines or heroin in any way. Those drugs are bad for you. They're horrible for you. But the government puts it in the same classification so that you don't have access to it because it would put them out of business. Now, there's some other drugs in that classification system that are also beneficial to you. And it's one that many people don't know about because of fear. They're afraid to try it. But psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, using quotation marks, and acid, LSD. These are two substances that are also in the class 1, schedule 1, whatever it's called, the same classification, the same grouping of drugs, the same as heroin and, all the bad drugs we mentioned, okay? Acid, LSD, and magic mushrooms are two things. First of all, they're non-addictive, so no matter how much you take, you don't get addicted to it. They might be habit-forming, but that's a whole different thing. They're non-addictive physically, and they will expand your mind, expand your consciousness, expand your awareness, and increase your intelligence, wisdom, and clarity, period. That's what they do. The shamans of the jungles, ancient cultures have been using mushrooms since the dawning of man to help them, find themselves spiritually. Find out, what's going on inside of them. Take journeys into the self to realize, problems and ways to solve personal problems. And it's been part of human, discovery since the beginning of mankind. And then more recently, acid came along and it did the same thing. It's synthetic. It's made by man, but it does the same thing. And these drugs can be used as tools. When used responsibly, they are tools to open yourself up, to find out what, the nature of reality. You see reality from a different perspective when you take these drugs. Now, again, I'm not endorsing anyone below the age of 18 do any of these things, okay? But if you're an adult, when you become an adult, I'm going to say that you cannot be a well-rounded adult if you have not tried a psychedelic. You're not a well-rounded adult. You're one-dimensional. You're taking reality for what you can see. And these things open you up to doors of perception that you cannot see without them. Well, you can, actually. You can do meditation, but you guys don't want to do that either, huh? A lot of people would rather take the quick and easy way, take a little, pill or whatever it is. So, yes, this goes for DMT as well. I forgot to mention DMT. This goes in the same classification. DMT is with the heroin, according to the government, and they don't want you to have this stuff. You know why, guys? Because if you were to take this stuff, and you did it responsibly, and you took an inner journey, and you saw reality from a different perspective, you would start to ask questions. And the government does not want you to ask questions. They want you to be secure in what you know. The things that they told you in school, they want you to think that all of that was true. But if you take a psychedelic responsibly, and you journey to an alternate plane of reality, you can see through the deception. You can start seeing that, a lot of what we're told about reality is not exactly true. So the government doesn't want you to get your hands on this stuff, guys. They do not want it. So they put these drugs, they label them illicit drugs, harmful drugs. They put it in the same category as marijuana, as cocaine, as heroin, as methamphetamines. I mean, let me just say a little bit about methamphetamines. The fastest way to destroy your life possible, okay? It's basically chemical death. Cocaine is so addictive and so expensive that you will. It's bad. Don't ever try it. Okay, and I mean all the other. I don't have to name the illicit drugs, but the three I mentioned: DMT, psilocybin, mushrooms, and LSD. When you are an adult and when you take them responsibly, only then will you start to get a grasp on what is real. Only then. Unless you want to go like my route and do the meditation route, but that's going to take years. Years and years of dedication. Or you can go one night and figure it all out in one night, doing it the drug way. So, the moral of this story is, guys, don't take anyone's word for anything. Okay? I mean, I'm asking you to take my word for it that cocaine is bad, and that methamphetamine is bad, and heroin is bad. So, it's kind of hypocritical for me to say, don't do those things. I don't know. Don't do those things. Trust me, guys, they're bad. But trust me when I say that psychedelics open up doors of perception that you can't even fathom. And you won't fathom until you do it. And you are not a full-fledged, well-rounded human being until you experience reality from that perspective, or perspective like it. And yes, of course, you can get there through meditation and through spirituality, possibly, but you don't need a drug to figure this out, but it helps. And that's why the government doesn't want you to have it. That's why they rather feed you sugar, processed sugars. They'd rather feed you grease and meat and processed foods and caffeine and nicotine and alcohol. Alcohol is far worse, far more damaging than anything I've even mentioned. Far more damaging than heroin. But the government feels like that they can make a profit on it, and they can keep you guys in a stupor without, people passing out or dying in the gutters. So they tax it, and they make their money off of it, and, people are just drinking death, basically. So, question your government, question the laws that are in place, and, be vigilant with your questions, guys. Always ask questions, because without questions, you're just taking other people's word for it, and then you're a sheep. You're a puppet with someone's hand right up your butt. So that's going to be the episode for today. Thank you for that question. I really enjoyed that. Disclaimer, if you're not 18, don't do any of the things I just said for the 8th time. Don't do any of those things. But ask questions, definitely. You're never too young or too old to ask questions. So that's going to be the Rose, working on it, coming along, and we'll get more of this. I guess it's done, basically. Isn't it done? I guess I'll take a tour of this week and show you the finished product, not in fast motion. But I want to thank you guys for all your comments, your creative questions of the week, your likes, your shares, all that. Thank you as always. Leave a like if you enjoyed this, guys. Happy Minecrafting. Peace.